Comedian Chris Rock is in hot water, California is going downhill, and racism is alive and well if you are a Trump supporter. More on those stories coming up today on The Rebel Buzz. The liberal mob. They're eating their own again. This time, it's comedian Chris Rock. Chris Rock has been around for a long time. His first major exposure, I think, came when he joined the cast of Saturday Night Live in the early 90s, which led to movie roles and voiceover roles. He's a very funny guy who has never adhered to PC culture, as indicated by one of his stand-up routines entitled N-Word versus Black People, where he talks about the difference between one type of black person and a type of person who glorifies ignorance and sloth and brags about fulfilling any minor responsibility. Now, I don't agree with everything he says, probably not much of it truthfully, but he does call things the way that he sees it, whether it offends people or not, which of course is why he's in the news this week. Over the past 5 years or so, and especially in the last 2, we have all witnessed the degradation and dilution of comedy. When I watch sitcoms from the early 2000s, I hear things that I know would never fly in today's perpetually butthurt culture. And don't think for 1 second that comedians haven't noticed it too. It's hard to be funny in today's culture. Now, sure, you can make jokes about the president, you can make Cheeto jokes about him, or call the first lady a hoe bag. See this tweet? Yeah. But it's very, very hard to perform comedy that doesn't enrage the left. You can make jokes about the right. We might even laugh because I feel like we here on the right, we have a sense of humor. But the perpetual outrage of the left has made it extremely difficult for comedians to write and be funny. And Chris Rock agrees, to the extent that he posted an article about the insufferable wokeness of comedy. It talks about how Jerry Seinfeld's comedy series, Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee, is a welcome reprieve from the day-to-day attempt at politically charged comedy. Now, who knows if Chris realized the source just happens to be a very right-leaning publication, but at any rate, the fact that the source was The Federalist put a bee in the bonnets of some people. Chris Beasley on Twitter, as @Logan48227, tweeted this in response. The Federalist? Really? And then he attached a gif of Stanley Hudson from the TV show The Office. Yes, really. Oh my gosh, he broke off and dared to visit a conservative site. Mob him, kill him, yes. And Batmensch on Twitter said this. Seinfeld show is great and needs no defense, but this article claims that the left took over all the late-night comedy shows as though George Soros gathered the clans and told them to insert themselves into the media. I'm afraid not. Okay, maybe not George Soros specifically, but a lot of people with his mentality. And yes, they pretty much did do that. Think about it. The media and entertainment have so entangled themselves with each other, it's hard to tell one from the other. All of a sudden, celebrities are journalists, and mainstream news journalists are the new darlings of Hollywood elites. But truthfully, we should have seen it coming if we had done our homework on Saul Alinsky. It is textbook rules for radicals, which is what they are, because who else other than radicals would so fervently attack someone just for asserting that comedy has become too politicized? Okay, here's a secret about me. You might already be aware of this because you know that I'm a conservative, and I'm sure you can imagine that a conservative living in Los Angeles sounds about as fun as eating cat poop. But the truth is, I hate this godforsaken state. It is truly the modern-day Sodom and Gomorrah. Now, not all of California, but certainly where I live, and I can't wait to get out. But because of peripheral circumstances, I can't leave just yet. Not full-time anyway. The traffic is awful. The people are even worse, with the exception of my group of friends, and I don't even like the weather. It's summertime, 11 months out of the year here, and I am an autumn kind of person, so when college football season rolls around, I never get that crispy air football feeling, and that's depressing. But for those of you who are not judging me for my complaining and instead feel sympathy, we have hope. Last month, when I was in Israel with The Rebel, temperatures in Hollywood hit 119. Thank God I was out of the country. But those temperatures, in conjunction with continuing fires and the subsequent risk for flood, may only be the beginning of the end for California. And look, I'd be terribly perturbed at upsetting the balance of the stars on Old Glory, but truthfully, a lot of Americans would not lose too much sleep over dropping our state count down to 49. I know it sounds harsh, but it's true, and you know it, as long as we get all the good people out first, of course. As reported by The Verge, this state has seen a climate that's a harbinger of what's to come for California, an increasingly volatile landscape ridden with worsening floods and wildfires, like the recent Carr fire that destroyed and damaged more than 1,000 homes. Expert predictions for the future suggest that the climate extremes of California's past 5 or 6 years are indicative of what the future will hold. So let me explain what happens here in California, because I know it seems strange that we continue to complain about it being so dry, and then fires break out because of the lack of moisture, and then we complain about the rain and the flooding. So because of the perfect way that God made this earth, he took great care in the balance of ecosystems. Everything on this earth that God created, he created with a purpose, except mosquitoes. I don't know what the purpose of them is other than to create continent-size swelling of my limbs when I've been bitten. But even fires here in California serve a purpose. When fires break out, they release gases that help sequoia trees release these little pods of seeds that are waiting to be germinated. Without these fires, these pods of seeds stay intact on the tree instead of falling to the ground, bursting open, and disseminating seeds to the surrounding ground so that new trees can grow. But too much fire spread to too large of an area burns brush. The dusty, scraggly, pointless-looking brush that we have on our hills and mountainsides is what keeps mudslides from happening. So acts of nature certainly have their part in the blame. But of course, a state that has been overrun by liberal policies, near bankrupting it numerous times, doesn't have the infrastructure to support large amounts of rain. So then you have floods, and judging by this study, it's only going to get worse. Now, I'd say it's time for the liberals to move to Canada, like they said. Sorry, Canada. And conservatives, I don't know, let's dig up roots elsewhere. TikTok, California. All right, so we have seen some pretty racist stuff recently, not in the conventional sense of racism against non-whites, but racism against whites. Just yesterday, news hit the web that the New York Times hired a woman who has a voluminous tweet history of calling all white people goblins and expressing the joy that she feels from being cruel to old white men. Can you imagine if I said that about Hispanics or blacks or Jews? For the record, I would never say those things because I don't feel those things. But racism, especially slung in the direction of black Trump supporters, is fair game and very often praised these days. The left would have you believe that these people are fringe elements of his supporters and liken them to conspiracy theorists. On Wednesday, during the White House press briefing, reporter David Martosco asked Sarah Sanders this.
First of all, does the president encourage the support of people who showed up last night in these QAnon and Blacks for Trump fringe groups? And secondly, is the White House willing to say right now, in view of what happened with one of our TV colleagues last night, that it is wrong for his most vocal supporters to be menacing toward journalists doing their jobs in a situation like that or in any situation?
Thankfully, more people are seeing the left for what it is and joining the #WalkAway movement. One such free thinker is Pastor Darrell C. Scott, who served on the president's transition team and founded Cleveland's Spirit Revival Center. He, along with other inner-city religious leaders, met with the president to discuss the First Step Act. Now, the First Step Act was passed by the House in May, and it assists inmates in re-entering society with the tools that they will need to assimilate and reduces the risk of recidivism. During the meeting, Pastor Scott said this: "To be honest, this is probably going to be and I'm going to say this at this table, is the most pro-black president that we've had in our lifetime. This president actually wants to prove something to our community, our faith-based community and ethnic community." And he's right. This president works tirelessly to achieve his America First agenda for all Americans, to make America great again for all races, all genders, all everything. But you know this man is going to catch backlash. And he did. Now, that meeting took place Wednesday afternoon at the White House, and by 8:35 p.m. that same night, this article already hit the web. Now, I couldn't stomach the racism of the whole piece, so I will just read you the first paragraph. It says this: "If I am ever lucky enough to meet God, of the myriad questions I plan to ask him, most, by the way, involve lactose intolerance. One of the more pressing will be, where exactly is the bottomless pit containing the endless catter of thirsty, feckless, shameless, stupid, and silly N-word willing to meet with Donald Trump located? Is it somewhere obvious, like maybe Detroit or Milwaukee or the Calabasas? Or maybe is the ceaseless pit of FS word that these N-words emerge from found in the middle of an oil field in Juneau, Alaska?" That's a real excerpt, y'all, from a website called verysmartbrothers.com. So smart that you can't wrap your brain around the fact that sitting down with someone to discuss issues is how you actually solve those issues. It doesn't seem too smart to me. I don't think there's any hope to shift this guy's mentality here on earth, but if he ever does meet God, I hope God sets him straight. And I hope you all have a fantastic weekend. Thanks for watching The Rebel Buzz. I'm Amanda Head, the Hollywood conservative for The Rebel. If you enjoyed my commentary and want to hear more from all of us here at The Rebel, subscribe to our premium content at www.therebel.media/shows. Make sure you're following us on Facebook and Twitter for all of our latest news, and download our new app for The Rebel Media on the App Store. That way you will have easy and instant access to all of our latest videos and your favorite Rebel shows. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Amanda Head for The Rebel.